Okay, it's 7 o'clock, so we'll call the July 17th regular meeting of the Village of Northport to order. At this time, roll call show that all trustees are present except for trustee Hugh Cook, as well as village manager and village clerk. Item 2 is going to be approval of the agenda. If anybody have any amendments or additions to the agenda? All right, hearing none, all in favor of the agenda as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nays? All right, the agenda is set. Item 3 is a public hearing. So we'll open the public hearing. This is regarding ordinance 141, attainable housing facilities exemption. At this time, we will open the floor up to public comment regarding the public comment should be directed towards ordinance 141 or the resolution that we will be voting on later. Public comment should be specific to that. There will be a second public comment, item 5, where people can speak about whatever they like. All right, so if anybody would like to make a public comment regarding either the ordinance 141 or the resolution, you can raise your hand and I'll recognize you. Go ahead, Larry. Please state your name and address for the record.
Thank you. My name is Larry Mobby. I'm representing Peninsula Housing. I'm not a Northport Village resident, though Peninsula Housing does own the property in the village. And I want to thank the village for considering adopting an attainable housing facilities district. We work as a nonprofit to provide attainable and affordable housing throughout the county. Northport Village will be the first political entity in the county to adopt this provision, and it is really, really useful for people who are working to provide affordable housing to have that opportunity. I know that adopting the ordinance does not necessarily mean any particular project is going to be able to receive that exemption, but it is necessary to have an ordinance in place before any individual properties can be considered. So I very much appreciate your considering that, and I really hope you will go ahead and adopt the housing district. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Hi, my name is Karen Korshel, connected with 312 Nagadava. And honestly, I mean, is there going to be any explanation as to what this is? I mean, I just found that I didn't understand it and I don't know what it's involving. And so in terms of the impact on us as, you know, property owners, is that going to, are you going to kind of go into that a little bit? In other words, is this kind of a discussion or are you simply looking for comments? But I don't understand.
This would be a time for public comments. So,
Okay.
and then
My comment is I don't understand.
Sure. we can, when we get into the second reading, have discussion about the ordinance. Go through some of the details there.
Okay.
How many readings are there? You said a second reading.
Name and
Pardon me?
so
No, I'm sorry, George West, I live at Ransom and 7th Street.
So I guess this is not really a time for a back and forth. This is just a time for public comment. But what I will say is that we did have a first reading at our last
Third meeting.
at the previous meeting. We had a first reading where we went through and
Because
discussed.
there won't be any more beyond this second reading, this meeting.
No.
How was this meeting publicized? I'm just curious. It's not a very big turnout. I don't think it is. You make big eyes. I mean, this is a big village.
Yeah.
How was it publicized? I got a certified letter. I don't know how other people got notified. Just curious. How was this meeting publicized?
Again, this is really not a time for back and forth. This is a time for you to make public comments. We can address your concerns or your questions in the discussion, but right now it's just a time for people to make public comments regarding the ordinance or the resolution.
Mr. Chairman, there are some of us on the Zoom who would like to comment.
Okay, yeah, go ahead, Jerry.
Echoing Larry Mobby, thank you. Thank the members of the council and the staff for working so hard on this. We very much need it. And it should be clear that this is to enable landlords to be able to rent to middle income people who wish to come and live and if they can work in the village of Northport. Uh, I I have gone through the ordinance and uh, I endorse it with one exception. I think that uh, it's important to include workforce as one of the purposes of the ordinance, but not as the sole purpose. We don't want to put landlords in the position of having to discriminate among applicants for year-round rentals. But with that comment, thank you very much. It should be clear that I'm speaking for myself and not for anybody else or for the township. Thank you again.
Thank you.
May I take 2-3 minutes and just give some background on the ordinance, because I have a feeling.
We can end up spending a lot of time.
Sure.
So the action,
Jared, introduce yourself.
thank you, I'm Jared Ahi West, I'm the village manager. And this is the second time that the village council has considered taking formal action on this specific ordinance. It was first discussed at a work session, which was just for discussion. There was no action taken in June, where we went over all the details about this ordinance, which is being considered for action pursuant to state law, which allows local governments to create what's called an attainable housing facilities exemption. And in order to create that type of exemption, and I'll explain what that is in a moment, the village council has to establish a district. That's what the state law requires. So we've been discussing this. It's a work session in first week in June, and then it was brought for a first reading on June 19th, at which time the village council approved the ordinance on first reading. The village council does not have to take a second reading and approve it again. I recommended that, and that's why it's here this evening, so that people had adequate time to hear about it and look through all the documentation, have discussions and so forth, and then have it brought back again for a second reading, which is then also adoption of the ordinance. There's two pieces to the action this evening. One is for the ordinance itself, but the state law requires that a second action is taken, which is a resolution, which creates the district. Maybe a little confusing. The first part of this is the second reading of the ordinance. And in the ordinance it states that concurrently, the village council will consider a resolution, specifically a resolution to create a district. Okay, so that's why the action is scheduled the way that it is, because if the village council decided not to approve the ordinance, then there would be no point in actually considering the resolution, which is second. The district being considered encompasses the entire village limits. And like I said, it's being considered pursuant to state law, Public Act 236 of 2022, which is a relatively new statute. There's a lot more emphasis on the state level and from the legislature to incentivize attainable housing. This is one tool. There's actually two different tools that are being considered by the council this evening. This is the first. The second, you'll notice on the agenda, is the second reading of what's called a pilot or a payment in lieu of tax ordinance. Both of those provide incentives by lowering the tax burden on qualifying properties. And the definition of what is a qualifying property is defined in statute, but it's basically tied to the tenants that would be in rental housing where their median, where the income for those tenants has to be below a qualifying level based on the area median income. Both of these ordinances are below 120% of the area median income. If you're curious about exactly what that number is, in Leelanau County, and correct me, Larry might know some of these statistics better than me, but I believe area median income for the county is 72,000 roughly, and so your 120% of that is about $85,000 per year. So, these ordinances work by offering a tax incentive. The first one is an attainable housing facilities exemption. That exemption is not automatically granted by passing this ordinance. As Larry indicated in his public comment, all this ordinance does is allow the village council to consider granting those exemptions into the future. And with the attainable housing facilities exemption ordinance specifically, it's for rental units or where there's 1 to 4 rental unit in a project. That could be for new construction or rehabilitation, but it's for 1 to 4. These are small scale types of rental housing. It's not a big apartment complex or something. These would be for potentially a single family home or a duplex, or 3 or 4 unit structure like there are a few in town. The pilot is slightly different. That's for a little bigger projects. And let me just explain the mechanism that's used for the tax exemption, and then I'll wrap up. I'd be happy if there are some questions, maybe that might help direct some of the public comment. If council had any questions to clarify my comments. The exemption for the attainable housing facilities exemption would lower the tax burden on eligible properties by about 50%. And those are approved on a case-by-case basis after applying to the village. The village council would then consider those and could take action to approve the exemption, which would then reduce the tax burden for eligible properties. Similar to the pilot is similar to payment in lieu of tax. Eligible developments, properties would apply for that, and if approved, the village council could decide to lower their tax burden, which instead of paying the full real estate tax on the property, they would pay something called a payment in lieu of tax, which is based on the annual shelter rent that's generated by the property, and it could be anywhere between 0 and 10% of that annual shelter rent. Lots of other details. I know it gets complicated and it can be confusing. I can explain in more detail. In summary, these are tools that the state has been putting into law to help local governments incentivize attainable housing. There is no housing being considered for approval tonight. This is just something that would allow the village council to consider these incentives for approval on a case-by-case basis moving forward.
Can we ask you questions? Are there any other, no, yes? He said something about questions.
There's some additional
There's
online.
another public comment, I think that.
Yeah, there's a bunch.
Yeah, so. Yeah, Chris?
Chris Irvine, 800 Mill Street. Will the establishment of this district make it more efficient for the construction of new projects? Will it expedite the process, or are we still going to have to go through, well, we want this project, but not this project, and we want it here, but we don't want it here, and we certainly don't want you to build your project where you want to build it. Or if we establish this district, are we going to have broad-based, this is all that you need to do within here, that you are allowed to build this project? To do these things for these people?
Can I just say, I think we need to figure out a different approach here.
It's a public hearing though, like we can't.
We can't answer previous questions. Can I pose some questions that I've heard people pose?
I mean, we still have to.
We still, after public comment, when we get into item A and B, we can have
Okay, then we can
discussion
have more
and
discussion.
answer public
Alright.
questions in our discussion there.
Which is what we normally do.
Okay,
So
so
if
right,
people have questions, you can ask them, but
You
don't
can ask
answer
them, but we won't
directly. We'll
answer
answer them when we
until
get
they-
to the section.
okay, that sounds good. That's
Barbara,
Online.
online? Hand raised?
You're on mute.
Hi. Joanne Swanson.
Hello?
Hi. Can you hear me? My
Yeah.
computer's telling me I'm muted.
You're good.
I guess if the suggestion made by the prior speaker was that this ordinance would usurp your authority to decide on a case-by-case basis where these projects should go and how they should be built and the parameters. I would be opposed to that. And I guess my concern is this going to be considered precedential in terms of your zoning ordinance and your demarcations of, for example, conservation, preservation? Is that included within the district for this purpose? I don't know why that would be included within the district that is designed for to enable tax exemptions and so on for attainable housing. It seems to me the district should be more narrowly drawn to exclude sensitive areas, and that the ordinance should also make clear that this does not usurp your authority to make decisions or the zoning commission's authority to make decisions on a case-by-case basis.
Thank you. I'm gonna get to some other people before we give people a second go around. Go ahead. Name and residence.
Samantha Madison, 7th Street. I would just like the village to please consider also in the same spirit of some tax breaks and in lieu of tax payment, that you consider some sewage or some sewer fee and water fee alleviation for whoever builds and wherever this may or may not happen. Thank you.
You.
Alan Woods, Warren Street. I appreciate the certified letter, but it seems to me that the timing is wrong. Should have been back in June when we were having. And I appreciate the need for the housing. I would respectfully request that you table this and you allow us to have more of a public discussion about this, because it seems like there's a lot of questions about that. So I myself have a number of them, so, but we'll just leave it at the comment today. Thank you.
Thank you. John? John Weber? Hand raised?
Barbara Weber.
Sure, Barbara.
Barbara Weber, South Shore Drive. Thanks. I sent a list of questions to Jared, who promptly answered them today, but I want to go over just a couple. First of all, I viewed this as an overlay zoning district, and he said it is not. I am curious how zoning will mesh with the attainable housing district. Shouldn't it be in the ordinance? Hello? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Shouldn't the ordinance, shouldn't it be stated that zoning will take precedent? And that zoning, we are a zone village. And nowhere, I've read the draft of the article, and nowhere does it talk about that zoning will, this needs to be in compliance with zoning. Is that a concern? Hello? I don't know if they can hear me.
We can hear you. It's just not a Q&A.
Oh, okay, well.
It's just
Well, what I submitted to Jared and to the council, for all of you, the council of trustees, there's 12 questions. And mainly it was, I'm concerned about zoning, that zoning remains intact. You've made an entire village an attainable housing district. One of the concerns I also had was, is this really necessary with the New Vision community establishing their attainable housing? It's just, you know, just outside of the village. Another question that really concerned me, and apparently there's a study whether additional housing would tap out our wastewater utilities. the last of my question, and I asked if this act had received a legal challenge. I did not mean our act. I meant the public act as established. Has there been a legal challenge to the act? Those are my questions and concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. John Weber, did you want to make a public comment? You're.
Yeah, hi. I was having trouble finding the mute button there, sorry. This is John Weber, South Shore Drive. I would ask that someone explain the notification process for this meeting with the certified letter. Was that something that was required or not? Because I have 3 neighbors who did not receive certified letters about this. They're in the village and property owners. And I'm sure they get their tax bills. So I don't know if how the selection process or what went on there, if it was even a consideration. As part of this, the adoption of this act, do all property owners have to be notified? I don't know. So if someone can kind of explain that, I appreciate it.
Betsy Malik?
Yes, thank you. Elizabeth Malik. I am not a village resident. I am a North Township resident. I support the premise of trying to, we've talked about it for a lot of years, of trying to help those that may be less fortunate than others in establishing housing. However, from wearing my real estate hat and from years of being in real estate and being a citizen here, resident for almost 50 years, I am concerned that this act does not address zoning. Specifically, if you could add in this language somewhere that your R1 district allows, if it is in compliance with your R1 single family district, then the council would decide whether that particular applicant should be able to do their remodeling or whatever to make it for affordable housing. R2, obviously it's for up to 2 units. R3 is single. R4 allows your multi-units, but I don't see anywhere in this 10 pages that you've addressed that the zoning is really the macro view. So you can have affordable housing in any one of your districts, entire village, call it what you want, but I think you have to hearken back in the language here somewhere that says, obviously, your zoning districts are paramount and that the applications have to be in compliant with the existing zoning district for which they're applying. And if it's in there, I didn't find it, I would like you to address that. I also heard you say something about the pilot. I would wondered if you had had any sort of a financial study done to see what impact, if any, this would have on village revenue. And then going back to the ordinance in general, I heard Gene Schatz say that he had exception with workforce. I think that this language, as I read it, was definitely driven by your 120%, that so it's totally income based. Did not see where you mention how far the local worker is allowed to work. So can they work in Traverse City? Can they work in Glen Arbor? Can they work in Manistee? Where is the geographic division there for what you will consider for the attainable, affordable workforce, whatever language you want to use, housing? Those are my comments, and appreciate the meeting tonight. I do think that we could have had a little bit more history, but then being in the township, maybe the village had more.
Thank you. Anyone else in person or in Zoom?
On Zoom, there's a couple more.
That's it.
Beth M?
Yeah, whatever that is.
I thought that was Joanne.
Um,
Oh,
Yeah, just to touch on a topic that I don't think has been raised yet, and that is just the overall vision for,
Just real quickly, can you, your name and residence for the record?
Sure. Beth Mooney. I'm on North Shore Drive.
Thank you.
And my comment has to do more with a long-term vision for Northport. And I guess when I look at the community, when I look at the village, I think, right now you're looking at this as something that over time would discount, property tax and property values, and maybe during a time when the village is well funded and most homes are being actively lived in, and you've got a strong pipeline of community within the village, it might be looking at something that detracts from your overall property revenue, might be appealing. But when you look out over 5 years and 10 years, largely given the demographic that enjoys Northport right now, I guess what's being done to ensure that you've got a pipeline of younger people coming into Northport that can really continue to sustain the community, not only at its current levels, but even more vibrant. What does the next 30 years look like? And I guess my comment is just make sure that you've done enough of an audit with the existing state of housing within the village, that you've talked to current homeowners. There are a lot of smaller homes in the village, especially. What's being done to just work one-on-one with those homeowners to see if there's an opportunity to rent without requiring this program, and still maintaining, the overall revenue coming from the property taxes, and also not detracting, of course, from, the growth that we've all benefited from in terms of real estate value in the area. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in person? Go ahead. Yeah.
I said, John Westbrook, I'm on Fifth Street. And I'm speaking, I'm not, in favor or opposition to this. I'm just making a point that most of the people that I know that I've talked to about this issue got their information from one article in Enterprise. And this may not even be relevant tonight, for what you're going to do. But I don't think most people that read that didn't understand it. The fact that there's more questions than answers. So I think that's why, there's so much like what's really happening here. I don't think too many people actually went on to the village site, read the whole proposition. So that's fine.
Fair. Anyone else? Yeah, go ahead.
Well, just as you go into your discussion period, thank you very much for having this, and generally I'm very supportive of attainable housing. It's something that I'm involved in. My question though is, owning an existing house that's 20, 30 years old, are you trying, is this directed towards existing stock and hoping that will become long-term rentals, or is this really aimed at new buildings? So it's just a clarification that's you. Pretty basic though. Yeah. Thank you.
Gerald Woods, 102 High Street. The question is, once a person attains the ability to have this, is it guaranteed for life, or is it annually renewable, or how does that work? And as well, that, once the taxes go, you have 50% granted on the tax, deferment. Does, who makes that up? If it's successful, then we lose a lot of taxes on the base. How do we make that up?
Anyone else, public comments? Okay, if there is no more, we'll move on to item A of the public hearing, which is a second reading of the ordinance 141 attainable housing facilities exemption. And just real quickly, just a couple of the questions that were asked. One, a certified letter was required to send out regarding this ordinance. And as our village manager noted in our previous meeting, this is very unusual that this would be required, and that it was almost as if it was put in place to discourage these ordinances, because the village incurred a cost to send out those certified letters. All right. Two, this exemption will not usurp any zoning in the village of Northport. All projects requiring land use permits, new constructions will need to adhere to our current zone. So this will not allow, without an exemption, which would be unlikely, you would not allow multifamily housing in the R1 district. We would follow, and again, planning commission would need to approve land use permits and all that stuff. Then it would come to the village council. Let's see, what else was there? The third thing was, what did you just? Yeah, forever. So it does state that the exemption lasts up to 12 years. So there is a time limit on that. And in terms of how we recoup that is that the village manager has the numbers, but we have seen the home values and the taxable value in the village increase exponentially over the last couple of years. I think, what did you say? The taxable value of the village has gone from 71 million to 79 million in 2 years.
It's just over 80 in 2025. So it went from 65 to 80 over 2 years.
Okay, did any other council members have any questions or answers to some of the questions that were brought forth from the public?
I would like to just pose the question, which I think I know the answer to. Are there other communities in the state of Michigan that have adopted this?
There are. The city of Frankfurt adopted this at the end of 24, I believe, and I included a memo from their legal counsel, which is also the village's legal counsel. I put it in the Dropbox and I emailed it to council. It's very useful at addressing a range of questions that I think are relevant here. It's generally, though, it's not widely used so far. It's a fairly new statute, being from 2022, that allows local governments to enact this kind of ordinance. So there are examples from across the state, but it's definitely a minority of municipalities so far that have put it into place. I can give you some examples off the top of my head. Traverse City, Jackson, Frankfurt locally. So there are definitely examples. The communities across the state understand, I think, that they need whatever tools are available to deal with the housing issues that we're facing. And so this is one of the tools that is starting to be enacted.
Well,
yeah, there was 2 questions that I took notes on. One of them was the Ms. Malik's question about geographic requirements of work. That would not be legal. That's a constitutional issue. So if these people, it is income. You qualify by your income, not the geographical location of your employment. You can't do that in this country. It's fundamentally unconstitutional. So people could work in Suttons Bay or Leland and live in Northport. I don't see that as a downside of this program whatsoever. We want residents in our school and who cares where they work. The other thing is, financial study on any pilot program that might be presented, which there are none on the horizon that I know of. Those are all case by case, and of course, there would be intense scrutiny on the financial impact on the tax base before any pilot program would be approved. That's it. Other than that, it's pretty straightforward.
Laura,
I have one that you kind of touched on, but I just want to, as a member of the planning commission, clarify that this doesn't usurp zoning because this is a village ordinance. Zoning still always stands as the zoning that is required. As in terms of what houses can be where, or how many housing units can you build in a zone. For example, R1, you cannot have multifamily dwellings there. It's not a permitted use. It's not a special use. You cannot get a variance for use. So that's not an area that would have something like that. The only other way would be a planned unit development, but that's also not allowed in R1. And those are all special use, which require a whole permit process and hearings and things. So it's not like something is going to go in without people being aware, and there are still restrictions on where you can do what, and all of that is outlined in the zoning uses that are allowed by right or by the special use in our zoning ordinances.
So. The short way is that this provides no new uses by right.
Correct.
In any zoning.
Correct.
In any zone.
But does that, I have a question
Sure.
because I don't
Yeah.
understand zoning nearly as well as most of you do, but, does that mean that, if Jerry Woods or Alan or somebody decided that they wanted to retrofit their home to allow a rental of full-time rental unit, they couldn't do that?
Well, I don't think it would be a multifamily dwelling. So, I mean, like, single family homes are still allowed.
So-
The attainable housing facilities exemption can apply to anywhere between 1 and 4 units. It can apply to single family.
Yeah,
But-
right. What I'm saying is it's not gonna be multifamily though, because of where you are and what you have.
I think Susan, what, there were, sorry.
No, go for it. I'll rephrase my question.
Is you cannot take a R1 unit, rehab it to make it 2 dwellings and somehow there's no loophole there.
No.
If it's R1, it's R1, it's gonna stay R1. No retro can make it into 2 units.
I think I'm not sure if there are one or two, but anyway.
Well-
It doesn't matter, but
You
like,
can't magically.
you can't, basically, this does not usurp zoning.
Okay, zoning prevails. But it does give, correct me if I'm wrong, it does give nonprofits like Larry Mobby's and others in the area. It would give them an incentive to build a small.
A unit that's allowable in the zoning that they're looking
In
at.
that zoning, right, and it gives them some incentive. And there are plots around the village. Larry and others have explained to me that nobody's gonna build affordable housing on property they have to buy, especially here. It's too expensive. So it can only be built reasonably on property that's donated. That's why the village has been talking about the plots that we own that we might be able to donate to a developer like him. Is that right?
Right, and if they're looking at a zone that doesn't allow 2 homes or multifamily homes and it's just single family homes, this would still apply to them, but only for a single family home. In
Right.
that location, if
Right.
that's what's allowed.
Right,
So the district is for small projects, the pilot program would be for a bigger
right.
development, which, is a ways out, but we're trying to just get this into the realm of possibility. So
Yes.
that 2
Yes.
years from now or something, if we're approached, we're like, yeah, we're already ready.
Yes,
We already have
correct.
this in place, and this
Correct.
is, it's a very important thing to do, and nothing's gonna change.
And every project needs to
Overnight.
be approved.
Yeah, case by case.
And case by case, absolutely case by case.
Yeah, because this still doesn't say that, oh my gosh, now if you apply for it, then you get this exemption. It means that you can apply and we could do it if you meet all the parameters that you've
Right,
had laid before you.
that's exactly right. That's,
the other thing I wanted to address was the new versus existing. And so it states specifically provides tax incentives for property owners who build new units or spend 5,000 or more rehabilitating an attainable housing property in order to provide up to 4 separate rental units to qualifying household members of the local workforce between 60% and 120%. So that there is a minimum. And a perfect example of this, and it can't be applied retroactively, but the building right next to the village office here that used to be a commercial space was renovated into housing. And so if these people were to provide that housing to people in that range, 120 to 60, they could then apply for this exemption. So they would get, a potential reduced tax, which in turn, the idea would that rent would then be able to be brought down to meet those levels for those people seeking that rent. Again, so that property
That's a great
cannot
example.
be, can't go back and give them that exemption, but for people here that would potentially have a second home that they're not using. And would say, oh, the incentive to get a reduced tax rate versus renting it short-term for a short period of time and then having it sit vacant for the winter. This may incentivize those people to make certain upgrades above $5,000 and then look at renting those properties long-term versus short-term. And again, that's going to be viewed on a case-by-case basis, and it's obviously up to the individuals. This is not the village saying people have to rent their homes long-term. We are not doing that. Again, this is just to incentivize people to maybe take that action, because what we have heard from community members is, why don't you make those people rent their houses out year-round versus short-term? We don't have a housing issue. We have all these houses that are sitting empty. And what we discussed at our last meeting is that, this council doesn't see the short-term rentals being an issue, because what we see in a lot of our short-term rentals are actually people that use those homes for a portion of the year, rent them out for another portion of the year, and then they sit vacant, maybe October through March or April. And so what we're looking to do is, if people have a second home that they're not utilizing to the fullest, and there would be a way to bring more residents into the village. Our school population is down to 120 some. They would like to see that increased. People are going to need a place to live. And so this is going to apply to existing homes, but also for nonprofit developers or for-profit developers, people that want to get this exemption that's going to help them get those rental rates down for people that want to live in Northport, because we need people to live and yes, work here as well. But if you're in the trade business, your job is moving all the time. So we want residents to support our local businesses, and for multiple other reasons, but
It does disincentivize short-term rentals to a certain extent. In some cases, it's not gonna disincentivize a short-term rental down on the water, but it might disincentivize a short-term rental on West Seventh, or somewhere like that, that's, not. It could go either way. It could go VRBO, or you could take this tax incentive instead and help that with your bottom line and provide a home for a family. So it almost comes out in the wash, and it's a lot less hassle. So a lot of people think that the short-term rental situation in Northport, all the VRBOs and Airbnbs are taking away the inventory from families that would rent those houses. This kind of combats that. In some cases, it's not gonna work in every case, but there are homes that are on the cusp of whether they would be a VRBO or a long-term rental for a family, and this gives the landowner, property owner, a financial incentive to say, okay, hey, I'm gonna rent it to a family because it's gonna come out almost even. So that's really what this does. It gives a tax break to nice people that rent their houses out to families. That's the bottom line.
So at this time, is there any questions from the public regarding what we just talked about, or what Jared explained and we have discussed here? I hope we've been able to clarify.
Tax reduction that he's imposing is simply village taxes, it's not.
We're not
taking that school, it's not. What's the scope of the taxes, it's actually.
It would be all the
All the-
taxes,
all-
all the taxes.
all-
So it would not just your village
Not just
taxes,
village.
but your township taxes and
School tax.
the county. And so that's one of the things, is that the village does not need approval from any other municipality. So the township or the county cannot come and say, you cannot allow this. This is something for the village to decide. It will affect you know, the county and the township, ad valorem tax. But so to answer your question, it's not just village taxes.
Can I just tag along on
Yeah.
that too? There is a maximum that's set at 5%, so if the exemptions were to be approved for up to 5% of the total tax, that would be if the properties to which the exemption has been applied, their taxable value totals 5% of the total taxable value in the village. At that point, the village would have to, on a case-by-case basis, justify whether or not it was allowed to approve future exemptions. So the state law actually provides a cap of 5%. Although right now, I mean, as the taxable values continue to increase, you can see where, you know, take quite a few projects, I think, to get to that point. It's hard to envision, frankly.
That would roughly be about $4 million, right? We said 80 million.
Yeah.
5% of that would be 4 million taxable value. That's what we'd be allowed to apply these exemptions to.
Yes.
We're not doing any questions and answers now.
I have a question.
Oh, yeah, go ahead, Joanne. One more.
Are the assurances that a couple of the council members gave regarding zoning taking precedence and you still have to comply with zoning, is that in the ordinance? Because if it's not, it would create an ambiguity that would create a lot of problems. Is it in the ordinance?
I mean, basically, it's in the state law and the ordinance.
Yeah. That's just not how statute
It's not-
authorizes zoning.
Yeah,
It's
it
not-
creates no new use by right under any zoning ordinance. I mean, we've answered that question, asked and answered.
I know, I'm just asking if it's written in the ordinance. I understand what your impressions are, but if it's not in the written word of the ordinance, then you're gonna have an ambiguity.
Well, you're
Because
asking.
a lot of us didn't understand that, but if it's in the ordinance.
Right,
it's
so
fine.
if it's not there granting something, it's a negative, it's not there. It doesn't meet, there's a lot of things that aren't in the ordinance. And, you know, there's the street names aren't in the ordinance, but, we can't put everything in the ordinance that everybody thinks of. It doesn't bestow any new rights of use on any zoning designation. It just isn't there, therefore it doesn't create anything. It's a negative, it doesn't need to be there.
Do you mind if I just then, if I clarify, I have one property, but I own it with two sisters, and I have always wanted to do long-term rental, and be part of the solution rather than the problem, but, you know, I own it with two other people, so just to clarify, because I have to report back. So if we put in $5,000 to the house, and because somehow that's the trigger point to saying then it's acceptable for a long-term single family to live there. And the rental could be on a year-to-year basis. You're not restricting, you know, the length of time. It's just a standard lease. Yes, okay. And then there's no local taxes that end up being paid then. So that's the deal. You're offering existing.
That's what,
Oh, right. 50%. Thank you. No, I did get that part. Okay. Is there anything else I should understand?
And then the rent needs to be.
Right. And so the rent, if we're saying that I think somebody said it's 85,000 is your median. And so if you say a third of rent goes to housing, then you're talking about what, 25, 26, 2,700 a month is basically the ballpark figure of renting. I mean, just back of the envelope sort of thing, right? I have the big picture.
That's a
then?
little high.
Yeah.
Okay, 25, 24, yeah.
30% of the.
Then, did you find what the median income is?
Publishes numbers every year, depends on how many people are living in the unit. The state's got a website.
Yeah.
It sets lists the maximums. I
So
don't know
you
what
say
it is.
2,000 a month, and then, but then they're paying the taxes, they're
You're
flushing
You're paying the
utilities? No, I realize that.
This is
All right,
a discussion.
Yeah.
No, but you have to figure that out, because
Sure,
you're
and-
trying to create that incentive for individual property owners.
Yes.
So you might as well lay it right out there, and so people can see it.
Well, and it's gonna be obviously on a case by case basis. And what I will say is that our village manager, Jared, is very responsive. He can answer a lot of these questions.
I will stop that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
and so,
And please, call me, come to my office, email me. I love talking about this stuff. I get really geeky talking about it. I would love to have this kind of turnout, come to my office and ask me questions about it. Because then when we get to meet, everybody knows what's going on, and I'm glad to see that council, because we've been discussing this, is really well informed and you get it. So, please my door is always open.
I think the only two questions that haven't been answered is your question, which was how to get announcements about meetings. We currently have a Village of Northport Facebook page that just opened up, so you can see all of the future meetings and like discussion ideas that we'll be having. The second is, I don't know if this would make construction easier or more difficult. I thought it would be, I don't know, negligible, but looking Larry Monty kind of shaking his head. And I was wondering if you had any comment on that.
Whether it'll make
Construction, yeah.
It won't hurt, let's put it that way, and project by project, there are so many different factors that enter into whether a nonprofit or a for-profit developer can build something that is gonna be able to be sold or rented. In this case, it's about rentals, at an affordable level. You're also gonna, I'm saving my comments about the pilot ordinance until the next public comment period, because you've got that on your agenda. The pilot, excuse me, the possibility of a pilot ordinance, that's another way to do similar things and to provide tax relief to people providing affordable rentals. So if you adopt both of them, then developers will come to you and they'll be looking at which one's gonna better suit their particular development, whether it's a tax reduction based on the rental income or tax different based on just the value of the property. Excuse me. My sense is that the attainable housing district was really intended by, when the state legislature adopted, it was really intended to incentivize existing property owners to spend some money to upgrade a really dilapidated property, but get a tax break for doing so. I don't know anything about the details about the housing situation in Norfolk, whether there are properties that would make sense. I do believe that the other incentive on the part of the state was in communities that allow accessory dwelling units. The ability of a property owner to add an accessory dwelling units that is long-term rented at affordable rates could be incentivized by the fact that they would get a tax break on.
And explain what an accessory dwelling unit is.
It's a second dwelling unit on that property. And
Like
some
above
of your districts.
Above a garage,
Yes.
right, above a
That kind of
garage
thing.
or, yeah.
Yeah. So, I don't know what, I haven't looked at your zoning ordinance in detail. I work around the county and there's 14 different ordinances and I don't carry them all in my head. So I don't know whether you permit accessory dwelling units
We do.
generally or in some districts.
We do.
Okay, well then, that would be another way that people who own a property here, they could conceivably with this.
And this is for people who've been thinking about that casually, like maybe we rent above the garage. This gives them,
I think this
more
gives them another
incentive.
opportunity to talk to. They have to get planning commission approval to
right.
build it and then to talk to the village council about getting the exemption for up to
Right.
12 years for 50% of the property tax. It's a way to incentivize local people to do things for the local community, I think. And so. No, thank you.
Okay. Any other discussion from the council? All right,
Could you clarify the $5,000 dollar amount for improvements? I don't quite understand how that would work, what the purpose of that is. Like, if you have an existing house that's already well suited to long-term rental, you're still requiring further improvements.
so the,
What type of improvements?
any improvements up to $5,000.
That's in the state statute.
That's in the states,
That's in the state. statute.
or over 5,000.
Not what we're talking about tonight.
Like a nice new refrigerator.
There you go.
So nothing that alters, like
Well,
another.
You don't have to add another bedroom. Just invest $5,000 to make it a more rentable.
You have to make it handicap accessible.
No, you don't have to make it handicap accessible. You could, right? That's where
But
you could spend $5,000 on a ramp. That would qualify.
Okay, all right, yeah.
I should, the $5,000 number is in the state law.
Oh,
That
Yeah,
wasn't
that's not
something we're
us.
discussing that.
Yeah, again, some of these questions, after we go through this, the village manager will be more than willing to spend time with community members answering questions about this. He is very, very open to communication. Yes. So, with that, I would make a motion to adopt ordinance 141 on second reading as presented.
Second.
All right, the motion was made by McCann, second by Will. Any discussion?
Yeah.
All right, and so all in favor of to adopt ordinance 141 on second reading as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, passes. All right, and then we have a second motion to approve resolution 2025-11, establishing and defining the Village of Northport Attainable Housing Facilities Exemption District. So moved.
Second.
Yeah. All right, Can-
It's 9, not 11.
oh. It does say 11 in the thing here though. Packet
I
item.
had to switch around.
Okay.
A couple of the numbers, it is 2025-09.
Okay. 2025-9.
Yeah, I think I listed it wrong in the packet item, my memo, that little. Subheading here.
All right, so it's made by McCann, supported by Ager. To approve the 2025-9. Establishing and defining the Village of Northport Attainable Housing Facilities Exemption District. All in favor of the motion as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Roll call. Says a roll call. Starting with Will.
Yes.
Joe.
Yes.
Laura.
Yes.
Susan.
Yes.
Edwin.
Yes.
And yes. All right, the motion passes. Thank you, everyone, for your participation in that. And that will bring us to item 4, which is approval.
This concludes the public
Oh,
hearing.
yeah, this concludes the public hearing at 7:59. Move into our regular meeting. So now we will look for approval of the council meeting minutes from June 19th and our regular meeting July 3rd work session.
I move we adopt the minutes from the June 19th and July 3rd.
We got to do them individually.
Oh,
So let's start with June 19th.
I move we adopt the minutes from our June 19th meeting.
Or made by Susan, supported by Will to adopt the meetings from June 19th, 2025. Any discussion on those? All right, all in favor of the minutes as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nays? Motion passes. And now we have the July 3rd.
I move we adopt the minutes for the July 3rd meeting as written.
Second.
All right, made by Susan, supported by Will to adopt July 3rd work session meetings as presented. Any discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nays? All right, motion passes for July 3rd. All right, that brings us to item 5, which is our second public comment. If anyone would like to make a public comment, you can raise your hand in person or in Zoom and I'll recognize you. Go ahead, Larry.
Thank you, Larry Mobby, Peninsula Housing. My comment is about new business, item A, the second reading of ordinance 140 pilot. I'm not familiar with what your ordinance language is, but I am in principle supportive of every unit of government adopting a pilot ordinance. I know that Leelanau Township a month or two ago adopted the pilot ordinance. I'm really encouraging every unit of government. I'm working with the Leland Township, and we'll be working with Suttons Bay Township and Suttons Bay Village to adopt pilot ordinances. They are like the housing facilities exemption district, with just one more tool that people who are trying to develop affordable rental housing can use to make it possible. So I encourage you, I thank you for considering it. I encourage you to adopt that ordinance. I hope that it's in the spirit of what was done in the township surrounding you, which is a pilot ordinance allows the unit of government to accept, instead of ad valorem property taxes, taxes that are a percentage of shelter rent is the term that's used. Then that can range from 0 to 10% of shelter rent. And those can be up for a period of up to 15 years, I think, and they must include a deed restriction that's approved by the state that runs concurrent with that. So it's another way to do these things. And while my organization doesn't have any current plans to do anything in the village along those lines, the opportunity makes it possible for us to talk with development partners to do those kind of things. So I appreciate your consideration of it, and I advocate your adoption of a pilot ordinance. Thank you. And I'm going to leave that.
Thanks, Larry.
Jared, is this gonna require another employee, a person to maintain this? Or, I mean, like, maybe an individual has a renter, okay, and he qualifies, does all the, now the renter has to move. And so now does he have to requalify for another person? How does that work? Good question for Jared.
Later.
There's some, I just don't know.
We'll answer that in our discussion. Any other public comment? Joanne?
Yes, my comment has to do with the discussion at your July 3rd work session meeting of transferring the 1.2 acre parcel facing 7th Street to the Land Bank Authority for what I think the council would intend to be that or understands to be that the Land Bank Authority would remediate the property, then transfer it back to the village so that the village can then decide what to do with it, and that there would be no cost to the village of the remediation. And it seems, toward the end of the meeting, Mr. Ottenwest was directed to investigate how you could split that parcel off from the rest of the forested wetlands property. And the consensus of the people who are present, or the members who are present, seemed to be that this would be a good idea to use for housing. And I guess, my dismay came upon viewing the video came from the fact that it does not seem that the council has investigated, number one, the other public properties that have been listed by the Planning Commission as potentially suitable for housing sites. And also, it doesn't seem like the council has really taken seriously our request that this piece of property be allowed to revert back to its natural state. And I understand that no decision has been made. However, I reviewed the Land Bank Authority policies and procedures. I'm not an expert on it. But I don't view that as allowing the Land Bank Authority to remediate this property for the village at no charge, then transferring it back to the village for the village to do whatever it wants. As I read it, the price for any transfer of land bank property is to be at a minimum, any costs incurred by the authority with respect to the property. And that's paragraph F1 on page 7 of the policies. And further, the land bank authority would control the terms of any agreement with the village. I would imagine that it would require some commitment to housing if that was supposed to be the ostensible purpose of transferring it to the land bank authority for remediation. However, there is a provision in the authority's policies and procedures that identifies conservation and green space preservation as a goal of the land bank authority with respect to obtaining and transferring property. And in my view, if it is true that the land bank authority would remediate the property at no cost to the village, why not do it for that purpose, for the purpose of remediation and green space preservation? Otherwise, why would you want to surrender control of the property to the land bank authority, which would have, sole authority to determine what to do with it? I guess my request is, and I've said this many times, but I hope you ultimately realize that this small parcel of property is not going to solve the housing problem that exists in Northport, but it will go a long way in assisting Northport with its conservation and preservation goals. And just a couple of weeks ago when we were up there, my neighbor hurried over to my house and showed me a video that her cousin had sent her of a bear. He was driving down 7th Street. He saw a bear on the 7th Street beach. He videoed the bear going down North Shore and then disappearing into the woods. And the next day when my granddaughter and I walked along the beach, we were able to track the bear's footprints in the sand. And, I guess if there is this acre of property is crammed with people and all their things and all the traffic, you're not going to see things like that in that area. And so I guess I would respectfully request that you reconsider the direction to split the property, that you consider keeping it as a whole as it was intended to be, and allow it to revert back to its natural state. And I know I've said it before, probably not very effectively, but I'd appreciate your consideration.
Time's up.
Thanks, Joanne. Any other public comment? Okay, if we have no other public comments, move on to correspondence. Any correspondence?
Yes, there was an email between me and trustee Harper
Oh, yeah.
that I put into the packet. There was also the letter from Ross Hammersley to City of Frankfurt that I included. Both are in the Dropbox.
Thank you. All right, that brings us to item 7, which is our staff reports. First up is the clerk.
You have my report in your packet tonight and the financials for June, closing out the end of our year, starting a new budget year in July here. So that's been quite busy. If you have any questions, happy to answer them.
Any questions for the clerk? If there are no questions for the clerk from the council, we'll move on to the treasurer report. That was included in the packet. Yeah, social districts up and running. Village taxes are being received. Okay. DPW report was in the packet as well.
And Chris is
in Zoom.
Chris, any comments on the DPW report? Kudos to everybody for the 4th of July and all your help there.
Here.
Nope, if any questions, I'll be glad to answer.
I was
Go ahead, Laura.
I have a question. What areas are you planning to do the line painting?
We're gonna start probably at the visitor center, just to kind of get a handle on things. And a few other, crosswalks and intersections we'll be working on as weather and time permits.
Cool.
Right. Nothing else for Chris. Thanks for all you're doing. And
Welcome. Thank you.
we'll move on to the Marina report. Bill's not in Zoom, but report was in the Dropbox. Seems like all was good over the 4th.
Can I just make a comment?
Sure.
Is, point number 2 about the dockhouse hours. And pointing out that there aren't many transactions. And we don't collect very much money, but I think it's important to stay open those hours.
District gas available till 6.
What was that?
He's been open till 6. The 4 o'clock thing was too much. It was
Mhm.
too, people were complaining.
Okay.
They're open till 6.
6 and 8. Noted. No incidents over the 4th of July. That's good. Lastly, for our staff reports, our village manager, zoning administrator. Any comments on your report that was provided?
Not unless you have any questions, let me know if you see any issues with the way that the social district is operating. We only have 3 of the eligible businesses are currently permitted through the state and operating short-term rentals. Been working on that quite a bit. We'll be discussing that in the next work session. Happy to answer questions.
All right, no questions for Jared. We'll move on to our ex officio reports. First up is planning commission.
Yeah, planning commission, we had a good, very lengthy discussion at planning commission. We're still working on the master plan revisions and we're working through some of the later sections. One of the things that have been decided in previous discussions is that those aspects were rather vague, and just kind of, cookie cutter copied. And so what we've been working on is working through how each of those sections we can talk about specific goals for Northport in regards to those aspects, versus just kind of this overview that it had in the past. So we've worked through a bunch more of that. And then we were working on the village property rubric, and Jared wonderfully had gotten virtually all of it completed. So we were going through all of those and have identified some properties that we don't need to consider. For example, we own South Shore Road, and that is not ever going to be something that can be used for another use, unless something drastic happens. Anyway, so we're going to be revising and then kind of going from there now that we have some removed, but there were quite a few that we identified that could definitely have potential to be looked at for attainable housing. Yeah.
And will this rubric be visible at our next work meeting?
It's already in the Dropbox from planning commission, so you could look at it if you want. Anybody could look at it. It's in the Dropbox on the website, in the planning commission. And, but yes, once we get, I don't know if it's on the agenda next for our work session, but
Yeah, I think the plan was to try and finalize it. We still need to address a couple of the columns in it, but I think after the next meeting, we will have more of like a presentation format for it.
Yeah, I don't know that it's ready to bring here, but I can send it to you, but you also can look in the Dropbox. For example, one of the categories that we haven't done is there any historical or cultural significance to any of these sites? And that's because we were trying to initially to kind of try to knock out some that were very clearly not going to ever be something other than what they are. Like the DPW lift station and the road, and so doing that, and then we're going to come back to it and go from there with ones that were identified as further discussion.
And again, for the public, this was a decision we made a few weeks ago to have the planning commission look at all the properties the village owns that we could potentially donate to a developer for affordable housing.
Or in some way pursue it. It doesn't mean that we have to donate it.
There are many more parcels than I thought.
There's a lot more. And I feel like, as we worked through them, there were many that, there's even one, there's many that we just wouldn't have necessarily considered or didn't really realize the size or scope or what what it
Right.
had accessible to
And,
it.
and this was stimulated, I think, by the public, when we began discussing, the Buster Dane. With possible development of Buster Dane, there was a big pushback. People said, why not this property? Why not that property? Why look at Buster Dane? And this attempts to look at all the properties and evaluate them for their potential.
Yes, and that's definitely what we're doing. I
So
mean,
that's out, it sounds like.
yep, yes, and it's gonna be continued to be worked on. It's not
Mm,
done, but
right.
it's much, there's a lot there. So,
So is finding the rubric easy, or what's the file name, so I can find it?
yeah, I can look real
If
quick.
it's under rubric, I can find it, but if it's under.
It
some
is called
obscure file
village,
name-
it is called village property rubric.
Okay, if that's it, that's fine, that's all I
Pretty
need.
sure, yeah. So if you go to,
No, no, you don't have to do it, if I
That's
can get it, I can find it.
Anything else? For Laura, any questions? Okay, so we'll just roll right into Laura's infrastructure.
yeah, I don't have a ton of huge updates, but I know that the grant was applied for Road Street culvert. I think that's one of the main big things, because that's been on the docket for a really long time, like 2.5 years.
And those awards will be announced in September. And I think also we need to have some discussions upcoming about capital projects moving into.
And the sidewalks and all of the things, yeah.
Yeah, in 25, 26.
Yep.
As we are now in the new fiscal year, 25, 26. We'll do some budget amendments to address fiscal year 24, 25. I think that would also be a good time to start having those discussions at work sessions and get us more detail of this.
Yeah.
All right. Marina liaison is not in attendance. No updates on the marina, the water filling station.
Moving forward.
Okay. NLTUA, we did not meet last month, but I did sign the contract for the capacity and growth study. So they should be starting work on that. And as the phases are completed, I will bring those back to the council for presentation and discussion, questions. All right, brings us to new business. Item A is our second reading of our ordinance 140 pilot. And someone wanted to make a motion?
Yeah, well, you wanna go ahead, I mean, I'll support.
I mean, I'll make, I feel weird making the motion as the president, but you know, is that right?
I don't have.
To adopt ordinance 140 on second reading as presented.
Oh, second.
All right, so it's moved by McCann, supported by Harper to adopt ordinance 140 on second reading as presented. Discussion. We had really in-depth discussion at our work session. I think we're good to go. So again, it's
Larry did a good job of explaining it to the public. I don't
Yeah.
have anything to add to what he said. Actually, he went more in depth than I would have. And
If I could just point out one thing with the way that this pilot ordinance is set up. It's a pretty lean ordinance, that basically just authorizes what the state law says that the local government can do. It gives the council flexibility in determining what the amount of the payment in lieu of tax would be, anywhere between 0% and 10% of the annual shelter rents for the projects or approved. One of the things that I would strongly recommend do moving forward is come up with a set of policies to guide how the council is going to make decisions about potential pilot projects. There are criteria that are listed in the ordinance, but I think it would be good to have a process in place.
well, how about an application sheet?
All of
Or an
that.
application, it wouldn't be one sheet, but a
Right, but
pre-printed application.
Yes.
That would be.
Exactly, yeah, so it would, yeah, we would have that, we would have a form, and there would be a policy that goes along with that, describing the process for applying. And the criteria that the council would use in evaluating each of the potential requested pilots.
Right, uniformity and objectivity would be.
Yes, exactly, so, but this is just the ordinance that would allow the council to then move forward like that.
And as was stated earlier, the township did pass a pilot ordinance, very similar to this. And so this is broad, each property will be evaluated and those ordinances will, the pilot will be granted in an individual basis. Any other discussion? All right, hearing none. Roll call. Yeah, okay, all right, so we'll roll call vote on the motion to adopt ordinance 140 on the second reading as presented, started with Edwin.
Yes.
Susan,
Yes.
Laura,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Will,
Yes.
and yes. Motion passes. Item B, resolution 2025-10 sewer debt collection rates. Let's see, a motion
To approve village.
I move we approve resolution 2025-11 authorizing.
And it's a typo, 10.
Oh,
2025-10.
I move we approve resolution 2025-10 authorizing an increase to the sewer debt service fee to retire sewer bond debt.
I'll second.
All right, that's okay, supported by Ager, or moved by Ager, supported by Cavendish to approve resolution 2025-10 authorizing increase to sewer debt service fee to retire sewer bond debt. Any discussion?
Just remind me, in the materials, the targeted debt termination date was 28?
Yeah.
2028.
Spring of 2028.
Okay, thank you.
So, the increase would be $20 for the next 11 quarters on each sewer user to retire the debt.
What's the percentage increase compared to what it is now?
It's basically $20 a bill. It's a pretty small
Yeah,
percentage.
so right now, the debt service fee is $87. So about 25% increase on the sewer debt portion of the bill. Not for the operations and maintenance, that's a separate charge. And what it does is it's anticipated to eliminate the $118,000 shortfall, roughly $250 per RU.
That's currently projected.
We should
Throw a
revisit
party
it
when it's paid off.
Oh, we are
Everyone.
right.
Yeah.
as we get connections. If there's surplus, we revisit that.
Right, because this is just based on projections right now, and we don't want to get, the longer we wait, the more it would increase if we wait. Whereas if we do have more connections, then it then puts us in a position where we can potentially revisit and see.
We don't have a choice on this. I mean.
Correct.
Yeah, we have to, so.
Jared, are we allowed to use some of our new investment returns possibly to alleviate this in the future?
Yeah, in fact, that's built into, if you reference the spreadsheet that's included with the packet, we have included assumptions that will be earning a certain level of investment based upon our initial investment into the class investment. That's in the spreadsheet that we assume that's part of the revenue that we'll be using to retire the debt, as well as new connections. So those are unknowns, but we're assuming those when we did the projections.
All right, any other discussion? Okay. Just, don't need a roll call vote for all these, I can do them.
Probably do.
Yeah, okay, all right,
Is the resolution?
gotcha. We got a lot of resolution.
Do
Jared
we
likes
do?
resolution.
I do.
All right, so again, it was made by Ager, supported by Cavendish to adopt the 25-10 authorizing an increase the sewer debt service fee to retire sewer debt bond. In favor of the motion?
Roll call.
Roll call vote starting with Will.
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Laura,
Yes.
Susan,
Yes.
Edwin,
Yes.
and yes. Motion passes.
May I clarify too, I apologize for the typos in my memo. I renumbered the resolutions to make sure they were in order, and I didn't correct all the headings in my memo. So
I never made such a mistake.
it happens. Please reference the resolution on the agenda and the resolution document itself.
Correct. Okay.
We
Not
got you.
just my mouth.
Yeah,
No worries.
I missed that
Okay.
earlier, sorry.
Sorry about
I
that.
apologize.
All right, brings us to, new business item C, which is a resolution.
I will move that we adopt resolution 2025-11 public participation plan.
Second.
All right, moved by Harper, supported by Rubel to adopt resolution 2025-11, adopting the public participation plan as presented. Any discussion?
We discussed it a bunch last time. I mean, it's,
Yep, just as the official policy guiding public involvement in planning and development matters and authorizes the village manager and planning commission to oversee an implementation of the plan, evaluate its effectiveness, and recommend updates as. And we're approving this, and the planning commission is gonna be making updates to it, sounds like.
Yep.
Okay. All right, any other discussion from the council? All right, hearing none, roll call vote, starting with Edwin.
Yes.
Susan,
Yes.
Laura,
yes,
Joe,
Yes.
Will,
Yes.
and yes. That resolution passes. Brings us to item 10, payment of the bills. Affinity invoice for $3,900.
We don't have to approve that separately, do we? No. Okay.
It's just noted as one of the,
I move that we pay the bills in the amount of $111,627.78 as funds become available.
second,
all right, it was moved by Laura,
no.
moved by Will, supported by Laura to approve the bills and. There it is. Down $111,627.78. Any discussion? Okay. Hearing none. Roll call vote, starting with Will,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Laura,
Yes,
Susan,
Yes.
Edwin,
Yes.
and yes. All right, motion passes, bills paid. All right, that brings us to our third public comment, second regular public comment. If anyone in person or Zoom would like to make a public comment, we can do so now.
This has no effect, this new form, it has no effect on the residents. Whether they don't wanna rent anything, just the home stays as it is.
Right.
And the other thing is, the intent, I understand the intent of the program, but before some other low income housing, there was concern that they do this, and because it's a tourism area, the retirees will come, it won't, in other words, won't fulfill what you're really after necessarily, with more kids at school and stuff like that. We'll just have more retirees, which is fine too, I'm not, because I don't want myself, but I mean, how do you address that?
I'll answer in council.
Mhm.
There are tools.
Any other public comment? Yeah. Betsy?
Yeah, sorry. Chris, I think when you were talking earlier, you were talking about short-term rentals when you mentioned that they could have part-time, they could have short-term rental, and then they could rent again. But my understanding when I read the act is it cannot be owner occupied. I would appreciate having a little clarity there. In other words, if you have an accessory building, if it's not owner occupied, if it's a standalone and they're paying separate taxes and they're paying a separate sewer fee, but what happens to somebody that has, say, an apartment unit over their garage? As far as I'm concerned, if that parcel is occupied by, the main house is occupied by the owner, then under the act, does that preclude them from renting out under this new act you just passed? Does that preclude them from renting it out with those parameters? So that for me was a little bit of confusion as to how you're going to treat the sewer, the whatever, that kind of all rolls together, in my opinion, as to a single parcel, unless that's been separated out. So your act says not owner occupied. Maybe somebody would be kind enough to clarify that. Thank you.
Any other public comment? Not seeing anybody in Zoom. Not seeing anybody in person. All right, that will bring us to our council comments. Council members?
Very briefly, just to address, your concern, I'm not exactly right, in that. To get the tax exemption, it's case by case basis, so, but could they turn around and rent to retirees? There is, that is a possibility, but if you look at the REACH program that was done up here, just outside of town, that didn't happen. Everybody said it would, and it actually functioned the way it's supposed to. So I'm pretty optimistic that this will work, as it's intended. Also, these properties aren't really the way I'm envisioning this working. These aren't going to be homes that are going to be super attractive for retirees. I think they're going to be more family based. We won't know till we get there, but it's working in Frankfurt. And we're going off of an example that is leading the way in the whole state of Michigan. We're trying to do the same thing. And we're not breaking new ground here. We're riding in their wake, and it's working down there. So we want to do what's good. And so this is a step in that direction. All I got.
Any other council comment? Okay.
I move to adjourn.
I just want to thank the council for taking the necessary steps to try to address the housing. These are first steps in addressing a larger issue that's facing our community. And I just want to applaud everybody for doing the work to understand and get these passed. So thank you.
This was a lot. All right, now I move to adjourn.
All right, motion to adjourn at 8:32. Any support?
Support.
All right, we're adjourned.
Thanks all. Good night.
Thank you all. Thank you all for coming.
Biggest meeting we've had in a while.